working the fiberglass resin into the glass. I have a coating of resin on the bottom already, and it's a little high on the temperature spectrum today, but it's still within the limitations of being able to work the glass. Now, I would not really have to put a wrap of fiberglass around the rudder. The only reason I do is to encapsulate the wood. Then it will last 3 to 4 times as long. Now keep in mind, this was probably a rebuilt rudder that was only made of wood. It didn't even appear to have any stain or sealer or anything done to it, just bare wood. And it was left in the water. I mean, it wasn't even taken off the back of the boat while it was tied to the dock for many, many years. And rudders are something that run into a lot of damage, so being able to make a pattern, make your own rudder, is something that will be beneficial as a boat owner. If I were to just charge for the labor on this, there would be over $400 worth of labor in building this little tiny rudder. And you get into a bigger rudder, like our friend Mads on refitting Athena. If you were to get into building a rudder that size, you're looking at a couple $1,000 probably in material and labor. So it's beneficial that you're able to repair your own boat, do little things on your own boat. Now, I didn't go into any detail on the resin or the mix. It's basically follow your manufacturer's recommendations on this. All of them are going to be a little different, but it usually works out to 1% hardener to the resin. And you'll notice that I have the little cup that measures it up, but the only problem with this is I'm using such a small amount on this tiny rudder that it's cutting it in half and then cutting it in half and then cutting it in half again for the hardener. So it's drops of hardener in this. Now, that sets your catalyst in motion. Once you have your hardener in, you're going to go 1% or 2%, depending on the manufacturer's recommendations. And on warmer days, you want to go the lower end of that measurement. You don't want to have it flashing off on you while it's in the cup while you're trying to get it on the material. And I like to let gravity have some help in what I'm doing. So I wet my board out on the bottom really good, and then I just have to press it down, and what it does is the mesh goes through and the resin comes up. You'll see right here as I pat down it doesn't come back up, and you can, well, I can see the little moisture coming up right here of the resin from beneath it where it's coming through as I'm forcing the glass into the resin instead of forcing the resin down into the glass. And that way, whenever I come across the top to give it that sealed layer, the one that kind of clarifies, I guess would be the proper word, your glass, and chase all the air bubbles out with smashing it with a brush. Now you can use one of the thin rollers. Those are great, love those, but I'm just kind of playing lazy today. I don't want to clean up that many tools. And we're almost done with this one side. Then I'll put a second coat on this, and then I'll put a piece of fiberglass on the lower section of the rudder. Now, as I cut these out, I took the router and I went around because I want a curved edge. I want a radius on all my edges. I don't want anything that's going to have a sharp bend. And if you'll notice as I hit this, how it's letting the glass conform to that little bend. And as you press, you're also stretching the chop strand mat, and it'll conform to your piece so that whenever you're finished, you don't have any rough edges. And sanding will be a lot easier when you do it like this. And I'll come back when it's still kind of tacky, and what I'll do is I'll come around and with a razor blade, and I'll just cut some of these glass shards off before they harden, because once they harden, it's like shaving a box of needles, and that's really no fun. You don't believe me, go get a box of needles and stick a grinder in it. I know somebody will try. Not responsible for any injury or eye loss or death if you do that. That is not a stupid YouTube challenge like eating Tide Pods and all that other stupid stuff people are doing. And if I've offended you because you're a Tide Pod eater, you're so stupid you'll forget about it in a little bit anyway. Okay guys, that's pretty much all there is to this. You just get the resin down, you get the glass on, and you mash it in about like that. Then you'll come back and you'll take all the rough finish off the top. Alright. Got a big old weatherby over here buzzing around me. Now, on my holes, I go ahead and poke through them because I want them to be able to be down in the hole. The fiberglass, I want it to wrap the curve I put on there. What I did is I took my plunge router and I put it dead over the hole, and I went around the little holes that I drilled through to prevent chafing on my ropes. And then I'll get in there with a little piece of wooden dowel with some sandpaper wrapped around it, and I will actually sand that to a polished finish on the inside of those holes where my rope's going to pass through for raising and lowering the tiller, or the rudder. The tiller. Raising and lowering the rudder. And I want some of the glass to adhere to the sanded interior of that ply. Now this is going to make this plywood actually be able to last for decades underwater. I wouldn't suggest leaving it underwater for the decades. You know, when you're not using it, take it up, dry it off, take care of it, put a coat of wax on it occasionally. Keep it in good condition. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this clear pigment, or this clear non-pigment, on here because what I'm using is a UV protectant added to my resin, and that's what gives it that little purplish hue. And when it dries clear like regular glass. But what we'll have is a plastic that's around this, and it will be UV resistant to a degree, which is much better than most fiberglass you'll come across nowadays. There's a wrinkle under there. That's what was pushing me back up. I was wondering. That stupid dirty tarp. I should have cleaned this area off. Should have done it on all the sawdust, but I got in a hurry. And I got to get this in the dry, or indoors, after it's had a few hours to cure, because we got a storm heading by this evening. I'll probably be back inside playing video games on the phone, making guys cuss me out. But that's all the fun of playing games. Nobody really gets hurt. You might make them mad, you might hurt their feelings, but nobody gets hurt. Now what I'm going to do, guys, is I need to get this subscriber deal out and spread around. And what I'll do, you can share this enough to get us 1,000 subscribers. I'm gonna pick 2 subscribers at random once we hit 1,000, and get the email from YouTube that we're at 1,000 real subscribers. And you're watching that video. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give somebody a half-day rental on the sailboat. You know, we rent these out. $350 a day for the 21s. It's $400 for the 23s. So you got to have a sailing certificate. So you got to prove to me you know how to sail. We'll send you out and let you have a day on the lake. Go sailing. Maybe this fall if we can get there. If it gets too cold too fast, we'll turn around and do it spring. I'd like to do that. I'd like to give away a day rental on the sailboat. let somebody go out. You know, you put, well, it's got to be crowded. 4 people can sail on the 21s. It's more comfortable with 2 or 3. 23s, you can get 4 people on it comfortably. And it's just a little day sailing. Set you up where you can go out early in the morning or in the afternoon. But you don't have to wait on those windy months. Today would be a great day. We've got like a 6-knot wind blowing over at the lake where I put in. It's about 3 to 4 over here at the house. I'm 6 miles away from the lake, 5 or 6. But it's all good. Now I'm going to let this set up, get a little bit tacky, and then I'll come back and do the other side the same way. Hey, like, subscribe, share. Let your friends know you want to win a ride on a sailboat. Thanks for viewing.